Hello, good evening, and welcome to Monkeys with Fire. How is everybody tonight? Hope you're all well. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. So we are back tonight with another showcase, a role-playing game showcase. What are we taking a look at this evening? We're going to be discovering the game Vaesen, Nordic Horror Roleplaying from Free League Publishing. I've been reading this book over Christmas, thoroughly enjoying myself with it. Spoilers, it's probably one of my favourite books to be read so far. So I'm really excited to share the book with you this evening and go and exploring the Mythic North of Scandinavia. So let's take a look, and of course, with any of these sort of role-playing game showcases, a bit of a disclaimer: I am no role-playing game expert. I played while I was at college, which was many years ago, and so I am rediscovering what modern role-playing games are all about. So tonight, going through this book, I'll be exploring and learning just as much as you, and that's kind of the angle of the channel here. We basically discovered the games together. So if you do have any questions, or you'd like me to look at an aspect in a little bit more detail, then feel free. And of course, members of the chat, please do leave comments, ask questions. It's all good. We all get to learn from one another in that way. All right, let's jump to the table. So here we go. This is the game, Vaesen, Nordic Horror Roleplaying. Let's have a quick look here. Oh, what does it say? In the dark forests and forlorn mountains, by black lakes and hidden groves, at your doorstep, in the shadows something stirs. Strange beings, twisted creatures lurking at the edge of vision, watching, waiting, unseen by most, but not by you. You see them for what they really are. Vaesen. What a great intro. Good evening, Sarah. Welcome. Thank you so much for that resub. 39 months. My goodness. We're just starting to take a look at Vaesen, the Nordic horror role-playing game. And so let's just have a quick look on here. So yes, welcome to the Mythic North, Northern Europe of the 19th century, but not as we know it today. A land where the myths are real, a cold reach covered by vast forests, its few cities lonely beacons of industry and enlightenment, and a new civilization dawning. But in the countryside, the old ways still hold sway. There, people know what lurks in the dark. They know to fear it. So, Vaesen, Nordic Horror Roleplaying, is based on the works of Swedish illustrator and author, I hope I'm going to get this right, Johan Egerkrans? I do apologise, Johan. Regulars to the channel will know I get every name wrong. Vaesen presents a dark Gothic setting steeped in Nordic folklore and the old myths of Scandinavia. The game mechanics utilise an adapted version of the award-winning Year Zero engine. And indeed, talking about awards, the game did win several ENNIE Gold awards. I think it was Best Cover, Best Interior Art. I think there was one other. So there we go. It is a hefty book. It, as I am getting very, very used to now with the Free League publishing role-playing games, it is beautifully presented. It's a lot, very quality book indeed. We will enjoy the artwork as we go through. But we'll look in a little bit more detail. And how many pages do we have? We are looking at... obviously our character sheets at the back. There we go. about 230 pages worth of game rules, character sheets, and there is a scenario at the back so that you can play, get a good feel of the game. But what we'll do is, of course, with all Free League publishing games, you can get yourself these wonderful hardback versions, which are great for sort of, you know, just having a physical copy. But you can, of course, get a digital version, which is fantastic for using on your tablet or on your PC. And of course, you can use whatever programs, search functions to be able to locate keywords and find rules very quickly. Very, very handy. So let's jump to the digital version. And here we go. All right. What that means is I can bring the book closer to me, and so I'm not straining my eyes. Okay. Like I said, I've been reading this over Christmas, and I was just fascinated by it. I think what's important about a role-playing game is that it captures your imagination, and this one certainly has. So let's make sure I'm doing this right. Go back over there. No. There we go. All right. I think we're good to go. There we go. So, like most of role-playing games, it starts off with the introduction and it gives you an idea of a little bit of gameplay, just to give you an idea. If you've never played a role-playing game before, you get it's a little bit like a mini movie where you have the games master and the players sort of talking about the scene that they are experiencing as part of their little adventure. And then, of course, it goes on to the actual introduction to the game. And this is what I was finding just absolutely fascinating. So, the introduction to Vaesen. Throughout history, supernatural Vaesen have lived side by side with people of Scandinavia. But these creatures are not perceivable to human senses unless they choose to be. And I thought that was an interesting idea, that they are out there. It's just there. It's whether they allow mankind to be aware of their presence. But then it talks about the actual setting of the game. It is in the 19th century, and Scandinavia is changed by industrialization, war, and revolutions. The new ways of thinking and understanding the world are spreading through its universities. Old truths are being questioned. The rural poor are pouring into the cities or across the Atlantic to escape starvation, hoping to build a life where they can be free. So this is the change. It's as the start of the Industrial Revolution. The old ways are making way now to this new age, and it's this forgetting of the past. Yet the past is still there, and I thought this was a great concept. That, you know, all of these old folklores that become then just myth, but actually they were real. Yeah, it's just we thought we got clever and we thought we've grown, but in fact, actually, we've become a little bit more ignorant to the old what was originally there. And it creates this kind of this gap between the two, and I thought that was brilliant. So here we go. It's no longer the nobles and priests who decide how people should think and act. Instead, those who are able to use the inventions of this new age can make a fortune and exert influence through their wealth. Factories are emerging around the cities, giving rise to vast suburbs where impoverished workers are crammed together in harsh conditions. But here we go, the Vaesen of Scandinavia are changing as well. The villagers used to know how to appease the creatures when angry and gain their help with farm work, for instance. They refrained from being on the ground where the Vatir have their burrows and provide the Nis. I'm going to get all of these names wrong, but this is great. Nis, Nisse. Niece with porridge and a new hat every year, but the old rules and traditions no longer seem to apply. The Vaesen have turned aggressive and bloodthirsty, snatching children from the villages, wrecking houses and setting barns on fire. So, as people are forgetting, as they're not respecting the old ways, the Vaesen are some of the Vaesen are turning against them and becoming dangerous. So, well, where do the players fit in on this? So some people in Scandinavia are able to see the Vaesen, even when they are trying to stay invisible. It is called having the sight. You are one of them, and at some point you experience something that scared or hurt you. Maybe you almost died in a fire, or a werewolf chose to reveal itself to you. After that, nothing was ever the same. Suddenly, you could see nature spirits stealing food from the tables and trolls showing up uninvited to weddings and christenings. Which is great. So this terrible experience has befallen you, and the veil has been removed. You can no longer see the world like everybody else's. The bubble has burst, and now you have basically a higher calling because you are aware of what is going on around you. You and several others who have also have the sight have gathered in Uppsala in central Sweden. You have learned that that there used to be an organization called the Society. Their mission was to study and combat the Vaesen. But the last members of the Society went missing or left the organization about 10 years ago. And since then, the Society's headquarters, the old castle... Oh no, it's a word I'm not going to be able to say. There's an old castle, let's leave it at that, by the Ferris River in Uppsala has been left to decay. You have decided to re-establish the organisation. So basically, the way that I'm thinking about this is 19th century Nordic X-Files. Is it X-Files still timely? I think even that's probably an old reference now, isn't it? Eh? But if you know what the X-Files is, then you're gonna know, get a good sense of what the game's like, and that I think is brilliant. It really is very, very cool. So there we go. That gives you a little bit of an idea of what the introduction is to the game. We are an organisation that have the site. We are locating disturbances throughout Scandinavia where the locals may think that there's an arsonist going around, yet we know that actually it is a Vaesen who is lighting these fires. And of course we've got to stop them because nobody else can. So it starts to go through explaining the book, but it says the book and the game. This volume is a fully self-contained and it's all you need to play. However, we highly recommend, and we're going to get this right, Johan Egerkrans, Vaesen, Spirits and Monsters of Scandinavia Folklore, to dive even deeper into Scandinavian folklore and myth. It can be used as a sort of manual for the players when they explore the horrors of mythic Scandinavia. So there is additional books if you do enjoy the artwork of Johan. Johan does of course have a Instagram account. Just do a search for his name, you'll find it very easily. Well worth taking a look because the art is beautiful. It's one of the things that of course appealed to me. And so it starts explaining what role-playing games are. If you've never experienced one before, then it takes you on that bit of that guide. And then it actually says, well, Vaesen in a nutshell. So this is going through telling you about the Mythic North, so talking about 19th century Scandinavia. And I like some of the elements in this that I thought was quite cool. So here we go. Vaesen takes place in a mythical 19th century Scandinavia. This version of Scandinavia is not historically accurate, but an alternate world where events may correspond more or less to our reality. As such, the stories do not take place in any specific period of the 1800s. The Mythic North combines phenomena from the entire century. Steamboats, trains, as well as political and philosophical, get it right, philosophical movements from the end of the 19th century may well be mixed with earlier phenomena. That said, you would do well to draw inspiration from historical events. Much that happened in the 1800s would make excellent starting points for creating exciting mysteries. Alright, so you can grab stuff from the entire century, and that's great because it gives you that freedom, that creative freedom. And I think there's an element in it that it says, well, if you wanted to have typewriters, I don't think typewriters were around early in that century, but hey, if it works for the game, have a typewriter. It's fine, it's okay. It's your alternate reality. Maybe typewriters were invented slightly earlier. It's all right. Good evening, Mystical. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're just taking a look at Vaesen, Nordic Horror Roleplaying. We're just getting started. We're just setting the scene a little bit. So here we go. See, and again, this you'll find, of course, Vaesen is the name for the mythic creatures of the north, so it's like the collective name for them. And we will go through and look at some of these wonderful creatures. They are brilliant. And what is great, of course, is that, well, every country has its sort of mythical creatures, doesn't it? Back in the days of, you know, where everyone was in little rural farms and they didn't quite understand what was happening in the wood, and they would put it down to, well, you know, it's the gnomes or it's the pixies. And it's great to be able to look at one group. Obviously this is Scandinavia. You know, we did make when we spoke about the game a couple of weeks ago, there is kind of an equivalent on the other side of the Atlantic, isn't there, in Massachusetts, in Arkham, where there was a novelist there. Apparently he's reasonably famous, who created an idea of all of these fantastical and very dangerous creatures that were just beyond sight, you know. So again, there are games and different, you know, cultures have different types of creatures. We've indeed have played on this channel the American, some of the American horror creatures like the Jersey Devil and Mothman and Bigfoot. So, you know, we do have British Isles, of course, has the Loch Ness Monster. Yeah. So you know, you get an idea where this is pulling its creatures from its tales of myth and folklore. So here we go. So throughout history, humans have shared their land with Vaesen. Trolls, ghosts, lindworms, and other creatures inhabiting the woods and lakes. Like humans, they've had their ups and downs with one another. Many have assisted the farmers in their back-breaking labour and made the dark winter nights more bearable, with enchanted music and gifts in the form of strange handicrafts to blacksmiths and lute players. Although Vaesen have always been present, few have actually seen them. The creatures are imperceptible to the human eye. They choose whether or not to reveal themselves. It is said that their presence may be inferred from something as innocuous as a draft in the room, or from the abnormal behaviour of farm animals. Tales and songs tell of rules that must be followed as to not anger the Vaesen. That makes me think of, what's that story? The cobbler, the old cobbler who, is it pixies or gnomes or somebody who basically helps him cobble his shoes? And would that be a German folklore tale? I can't remember. I remember it, but can't remember it. So maybe you guys in the chat, maybe you can remember that story. But you get the idea of where it's set. Okay. Kinda. Yes, you kinda remember it? Yes, yeah, it's... Yeah, I remember having a child's book of it. And of course, it is a fantastical tale as a child, isn't it? But, of course, it's probably many hundreds of years old. So horror, mystery, and adventure. So in Vaesen, a session normally includes horror, mystery, and suspense. It is up to the gaming group to decide whether one of these should outweigh the other. To emphasize the horror aspect, the Games Master can put the player's characters in situations where they are alone and exposed. The creature seems unbeatable. Screams and strange scents occupy the character's nightmares. The countryside is dark and strange, and most questions are left unanswered. Stay on the path. Don't stray into the moors. Oh yes. And so our fight against the Vaesen. Your mission is to protect humanity from Vaesen, but the world is not black and white. See, this is interesting. The Vaesen you encounter are often victims of other Vaesen or of human activities. So you will have to take a stand and do what is right, whatever that might be. See, I think that's really interesting. I like that idea because, as we understand now, as society is moving on into this industrial revolution and they no longer believe in the old ways, then they, mankind might be lashing out at this unknown, and the Vaesen are just trying to, protect themselves or try and keep what was once the old ways for them. And you end up as a kind of a mediator. So the Vaesen are not necessarily a terrifying monster. I like that. I think that's quite cool. Okay, so we can kind of get a little bit into, well, how does the game actually play? And, if you've played any role-playing games, basically, you will get to an element where you have a challenge and you need to overcome that challenge. And in this, it's a conflict, isn't it? You're trying to do something difficult. And this is where you have to check your character's attributes to basically see whether you are able to be successful at that challenge. So maybe it was the case of you have found a piece of parchment and you are trying to work out a message that is on this little piece of torn parchment. You're trying to work out the messages, you're using your English literary skills and trying to work out, well, okay, I can see a variety of different letters here, and so I can work out that maybe some of these words might fit. Hey, maybe I can work out what this message actually said. And the Games Master would evaluate and go, okay, maybe that's a relatively hard challenge, but hey, if you are possibly a writer, maybe you are a little bit more skilled in this, and we'll roll a few dice, see how many successes you get. If you are successful, then you are able to decipher the message. And that's pretty much how most role-playing games work, and this just goes through a little bit of that. So we come on to your player characters. What we will be doing on the channel in future weeks is we'll be working through quite a few of these role-playing game systems from Free League Publishing and other publishers, and creating our own characters from within the game. So this is a section that we will probably do a bit more of a deep dive in the future. But let's get a bit of a rough idea of how we create a character, because of course this is your avatar within the game world, and this is quite important because it's who you are going to be. So here we go. Creating your characters. You choose an archetype. You choose your age. You choose a name. You distribute attribute points according to your age. Okay, that's interesting. We will take a look at that in a bit more detail. You then distribute points to skills and resources according to your age. This is sounding a little bit familiar. We were looking at Tales from the Loop, the 80s that never was, last week, and this was quite similar in the fact of your points were determined by how old you were. We choose a talent, a motivation, a trauma, a dark secret. Oh, okay, interesting. Choose your relationship with each of the other PCs. Roll for a memento and choose some equipment. All right, well, that's all straightforward and as I say, very, very similar to Tales from the Loop. And again, if you're already playing role-playing games, as we said right at the start, this is an adapted version of the Year Zero engine. So if you are familiar with that, you probably can jump straight into this and have a good idea of how the game plays. You're not going to have a huge amount to learn extra other than, of course, the uniqueness to the game. So here we go. First thing to do is to choose an archetype. It's the basis for creating your player character and specifies a number of choices that need to be made. Your choices become a skeleton from which a character of flesh and blood may emerge. The archetype also says something about what you are good at. So this is important. This is where we're starting to get our specialization a little bit. And I think it's always interesting to see what people actually choose for their archetype. So you guys in the chat, when we go through the archetypes, tell me who you would be. Your age. Next step is to decide the character's age. There are 3 age groups in the game: young, middle-aged, and old. Now, Tales of the Loop, you could only be between 10 and 15, whereas now we have a whole variety of ages. So young is 17 to 25, middle-aged 26 to 50, and old 51 plus. Okay, so let's see then, and this is where it's important, and I think we'll work it out. Your attributes, if you're young, you have more attributes than you do old. But if you are young, you have less skill points than if you were old, which makes sense, doesn't it? An older person is going to be more skilled because of more experience. So yeah, makes perfect sense. A name. Got to think of some good names, but of course I think we always seem to pick our names once we know what our archetype is, so we'll come back to that. Motivation explains why you are willing to risk your own life to track down and fight Vaesen. What could have possibly happened to motivate you? Trauma is the event that gave you the sight. An incident from your childhood or something more recent. It usually has some connection to the supernatural. Alright, we'll take a look at that in a bit. And then dark secret. I think this is cool. Your dark secret is a problem you are ashamed of and therefore keep to yourself. It may be linked to your trauma or concern something completely different, but either way it will actively affect the game. It makes things difficult for you. In Uppsala as well as on your travels. Perhaps you are hounded by government agents, hiding your alcoholism, suffering from delusions, or maybe there is something in your family that no one must know about. Oh, and then this works with the actual Games Master. The Games Master will focus in on your dark secret and give you some challenges for you to overcome. Because, of course, what makes a great character in books and in movies is that we want to see their progression. We want to see them to be able to meet a challenge and to creatively overcome it. So it's great that the games actually build that in. There's nothing worse than a character who can pretty much do everything faultlessly right off the bat. Here's looking at you, Rey Skywalker. Oh, here we go. This is interesting. Gender roles. And of course, because this is set in the 1800s, of course, there are many, many aspects to the game that, of course, we would kind of look at it through today's eyes and go, well, that's all very, very strange, isn't it? But it is of its time. But what does it say here? The real 19th century was a patriarchal society where men had power over women and women were constrained in what they could do, say, and what jobs they could. However, and this is great, however, this role-playing game is not about real 19th century, but a mythical Scandinavia. It is up to the gaming group to determine how your version of Scandinavia looks like and how you will handle this around the table. We see no reason to let historical injustice limit the options available to players, particularly since there are lots of examples of powerful women in historical literature and fairy tales. There we go. You wonder if they have minimal access to proper sized pockets. Well, you could, the ladies in Vaesen can have pockets as large as they want to. So that's great. There you go. We can enjoy this game and adapt it to how it makes everybody around the table comfortable and as an active member of the group, which is great. And of course, we do see that in a lot of more modern TV shows and movies that do cover sort of historical content, which is good. Okay. Characteristics. So what we got here? We got our attributes, our physique. Oh, okay. So how big or strong we are. Oh, right. Okay. And again, yes, this is again. And because we went through Tales of the Loop, this is all very, very familiar. Precision, so how our measure of coordination and motor skills, logic, empathy. There's quite a few here. And then our skills themselves, we've got agility, close combat, force, medicine, ranged combat, stealth, investigation, learning, vigilance, inspiration, manipulation, and observation. Which all make sense, don't they? These all link into your key attributes. Sorry, 4 attributes, which are physique, precision, logic, and empathy. Relationships. You have a relationship with each of the other player characters. At the start of the game, you'll know each other. You may have just become acquainted from each other or been friends for your whole lives. So you have to choose what your relationship is going to be like. Talents are tricks and traits and abilities that can benefit you in various situations. They affect your dice rolls or give you access to powers or resources. Oh, have I gone over too far? Too far. There we go. So, here we go. Resources. Oh, okay. This is interesting. I don't. Do we get to see this much in role-play games? Here we go. Your resource value indicates how much capital you have at your disposal. A higher value means that you enjoy a nicer home and lifestyle. You have easier access to things you need. The table on the next page shows the meaning of different values. So, looking at this value here, values 1 to 8 and your standard of living. From destitute, you are completely dependent on others for your survival. Every day is a struggle for food and you have few, if any, belongings. All the way up to filthy rich. You are one of the richest people in the country and have direct contact with its rulers. You own one or several castles or mansions. See, again, so that's really interesting. There was a series, wasn't there, a few years back called, is it Penny Dreadful? Which I think, were the Penny Dreadfuls, were they little books or little stories in the newspapers? Was that in around the 1800s? Little scary stories. I and one of the characters in that was a well-off sort of businessman who had found out about, I think it was about vampires in the first series. So... Oh, hello, is that Ku Venet? Hello, thank you for joining the channel. Yes, they were late 1800s, late Victorian era. Horror by gaslight. There we go. Yes. Did you watch the series? Are you familiar with it? It had some really good actors in it. I think it had Timothy Dalton. Is it Timothy Dalton? But he played a well-off, I suppose lord, maybe, it would be a lord, in London, and yes, he was sort of financing two sort of two characters. One, I don't want to spoil it just in case, but yeah. So this is an interesting element that it's not just the average person. We do actually have a spectrum, but I like the idea, as Sarah's pointing out. I vote for gutter trash. So you want to be a destitute or poor or struggling. You see, think of that, you know, think of the backstory that you would have, that you are very, very aware because many of your friends have disappeared because nobody cares about the poor living down in the sewers and in the gutters, yeah? So that's how you found out about the Vaesen. You just thought all your friends were disappearing, but then suddenly one day or one night, you were at a close encounter of the horror kind. So much trauma. So you're both with this wanting to be street rats. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here we go. So over on the other side, we have a memento. Roll 2d6 dice. First one represents tens and the other one's ones. Okay, so we're up to 66. We got all these different mementos, a dried red rose, or a photo of someone close to you, a silver cross on a chain, a powder compact with sleeping pills. So, interesting what sort of memento you might have and why it might be important to your character. Okay, so moving on. So on your way to a mystery, you'll be able to gain an advantage, but only one per mystery. The advantage might be a new acquaintance will be available at the location to help you. Oh, so that's interesting. You can use your advantage once per gaming session, which adds a +2 dice to a skill test. So it's just a little bit of a bonus, a cheeky bonus to try and help you. So that's interesting. Experience points. Okay, so that is at the end of the session. Your character will gain experience points, which of course allows you to level up your character. Your character develops, becomes a greater, more powerful character as time goes on. And of course, you hope to be able to play your character through multiple adventures. So, here we go. Archetypes, of which there are 10. So, this is what we're going to keep a lookout here for those of you who are going to be interested in creating a character in a few weeks' time when we come back to it. But again, let's draw a bit of focus on the wonderful artwork here that make up the role-playing game Vaesen, because I love this style. This is so awesome. And of course, with many of you being miniature painters, I think these make great inspiration for painting as well. Good, you know, give you a good idea of sort of colours, more neutral, muted colours, of course, correct for the time. But what have we got here? We have an academic. So who would want to be an academic? Motivation of charting the unknown or proving my critics wrong. And then a trauma. A vatia? A vatir turned you into a rat. I got better though. You were aged by the magic of a mermaid. You watched your parents being torn apart by a giant. Oh, that's bad. Hey, did any of you guys watch, was it Troll? Troll on Netflix, which of course is a Scandinavian, modern sort of Scandinavian tale. It's Scandinavian Godzilla. It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun. So that's worth watching. Okay, but yes, giants. Oh, we've got to be careful with those. We have a doctor. But of course, you know, you can see the type of doctor she is. It's all about saws. If you've got a sore arm, well, let's cut it off. Then you won't be complaining about it anymore. Oh my god! Oh, hang on a second. We gotta highlight this. So, Mystical, what are you saying? Oh, why is that not working? Okay, Mystical saying, mermaid you say. Can I combine those two and have my parents torn to shreds by mermaids? Well, why not? Yes. Because, of course, we kind of think of mermaids of being nice creatures, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're really, really awful. Well, they did lure sailors to their deaths on the rocks, didn't they? So, yes, why not? Why not indeed? But there we go, we have a doctor. A doctor who has two separate personalities. Or is involved in illicit affairs. Fantastic. That's a definite dark secret, isn't it? This game is gonna brink of the dark unicorn. The dark unicorn, what's that? It's gonna bring the dark unicorn. Oh, your dark side. I think it's your dark side. It's gonna bring out your dark side. Yes, I think it might do. It might do indeed. But that's fun. It's role playing. It's okay. It's allowed. So here we go. Hunter. I think this is the one that quite a few people might go for. But you could make a really interesting backstory because, hey, maybe you're a hunter, but you are a wealthy hunter. Yeah. So that thing attacked my family. Must be destroyed. You were captured at dawn by a mountain troll and was stuck in its petrified arms. Oh my goodness. Because remember, of course, trolls, when sunshine falls upon them, they turn to stone. So if you were struggling and it was turned to stone, my goodness. An occultist. That bunny rabbit is not looking too happy at all. The occultist is searching for power. Guilty of a heinous crime. My powers control me. We then go over... Oh, jumping too fast. There we go, an officer. So this officer could be a deserter. I'm not quite familiar with any wars that were... Well, what? Hang on. In the 1800s, of course, oh my goodness, it'd be Waterloo happens in 1815, doesn't it? I was going to say, there was no wars happening in the 1800s. It was a relatively peaceful time. What are you talking about? But yes, I think probably one of the most famous battles happened in this century. Okay, and my friend needs me, and I'm there to seek out danger and death. So that could be an interesting character to play. given that you are obviously been brought up through the military, or they're set to following orders and a very regimented way of doing things, and suddenly you have beheld the Vaesen, and your world basically crumbles around you, doesn't it? Everything you believed no longer makes sense, and so how are you going to deal with it? That could be quite interesting. A priest! Oh my goodness, so yes, this would be challenging his faith, or her faith. So, dark secret, the devil speaks to me. I have stolen my identity. Oh, that's a good one. So he's not really a priest. Maybe he's a struggling gutter rat person who has taken a priest's clothing. Maybe the priest was already dead, so we don't want to say that the gutter rat was a nasty person, but maybe they've taken his garments, and they remember what a priest, might have seen a priest one time, might have heard or spoken to a priest, and so they're trying to emulate that to obviously have a bit slightly better life. There's so much potential. Okay, we go over to private detective. Again, 1800s. I'm sure there was quite a few, well, certainly one infamous private detective in old London. So you can draw a lot of inspiration from that. And then, of course, because of the time, well, we have a servant, a butler. That's a butler. Maybe the butler is linked directly to the officer. Maybe the officer comes from a wealthy family. Oh, here we go. Let's see what Mystical's suggesting. Let's see, is this going to work? There we go. Plot twist. He made a deal with the mermaids to save his life from a sinking ship, but in turn, he had to give them the names of their next victim. Cute child whose parents were torn apart. Then he became a priest to repent from it. Okay, see? This is, role-playing games are great for this, aren't they? Hey? Straight away, it just generates lots of fantastic ideas. Oh, too far. Well, here we go, Sarah. Here is your character, a vagabond. All right, Governor. So, what could a vagabond? I was 5 years old when I learned to carve and interpret hobo signs. At 15, I came across a symbol I'd never seen before. It had been scratched into the fence of an isolated farm, a star with a distorted guard dog. So, your motivation? Avenging your family. Trauma. You saw a revenant rise from its grave. Dark secret, stolen identity. Here's one. The dark secret, I wonder if this would work. The dark secret for the vagabond is actually you're the son or daughter of a wealthy family, but you were cast aside as a babe. And would that work? Could you do that? Maybe you're not fully aware, or maybe you... Well, no, you wouldn't be, would you? You were stolen away, yes. Yeah, that could be a really interesting secret, because it's not dark. I suppose it's not something... Well, I wonder, because it's supposed to be something... I suppose it's something you're supposed to be ashamed of, isn't it? Because you've got a sixth toe. And okay, and then finally a writer. So you're researching a book. You were cursed by a homeless Vetir to write a book in your own blood. What did you do to annoy this Vetir? I record and use the secrets and weaknesses of my friends. So there you go. Those are the 10 archetypes. Which ones did you like? Which ones would you be? Sarah, are you going to be the vagabond? Baba Yaga stole you and raised you in her hut, and you have to bring her unsuspecting passers-by. Which nation does Baba Yaga come from? I am familiar because doesn't the hut, does it have like chicken legs? But it's sort of tall chicken-legged hut, isn't it? So I think I might. What would I go for? I might go for the occultist. I think that would be a little bit different. You don't have to be an evil occultist. You could be a good one. I guess the occultist is just a little bit more aware. The academic would have been researching in libraries, but the occultist is always known, isn't it? The occultist is the person who knows the old ways, has never truly sort of, moved on. Russian, yes, I thought that was the case. As we say, every culture has its myths and folklore. Okay, so moving on then from the archetypes, we start going into the skills. And as I say, this is typical roleplay fare, where of course, you meet a challenge and you're going to have to do a skill test to basically see if you overcome that challenge. And there are various skills here: agility, close combat, force, which these are all governed by your physique, attribute, medicine, ranged combat and stealth for your precision, investigation, learning and vigilance through your logic, and inspiration, manipulation and observation through your empathy. And various challenges will have their levels of difficulty, and ultimately you will be rolling your dice, and depending on the difficulty of the action will determine the number of successes that you must roll. And as long as you get enough, then of course you have achieved what you were aiming to do. So, it's typical role-playing, isn't it, eh? So then, oh, too far ago, there we go. What do we have? We have some equipment, we have extra successes, so it just goes into a little bit more detail, and then it looks at the actual skills themselves. There we go. And just giving you a little bit of description. So, agility, there's the ability to run fast, be flexible, and leap out of danger. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? And again, most of these will make sense very easily. So, force, medicine, we've just gone through all those, haven't we? Again, I am loving these illustrations as we go through the book. That is one. Well, I mean, you want to say it's an owl, but who knows? We'll find out. We'll find out. So you're absolutely not deep diving into Scandinavian fairy folk now, not at all. Are you sure? Is that what you're doing? Are you doing some research already? It is wonderful. These, again, this is what I like about role-playing games, of the sort of being made aware of something that you're not, and then having all this information provided to you, and how it then just generates your creativity and imagination. That's what I love about it. So we've gone from our skills, we go into our talents. So in addition to your skills, you have certain tricks and traits that might come in handy. Oh, too far. So these are specific to the actual archetype that you choose. So there's some relevance there. So here we go. I went for the occultist. So I have the talents of conjuring tricks, acting as a medium, and striking fear. Nice, this is good. Conjuring tricks. You can use stealth instead of manipulation when performing conjuring tricks to influence people. Was your card the Ace of Hearts? You have the Ace of Hearts? Yeah, you can have the Ace of Hearts, can't you? Of course you can. Yeah. When was the last time I did cards? Medium. You can use observation to perform seances when you predict people's futures and contact the dead. Okay, this is what we want to do. I think being an occultist is quite cool. I'll have to get some bones and maybe, you know, the blood of some rats. That's it. Maybe not card tricks. Yes. No, we're not going to do that. We'll just do we'll do some some reading the tea leaves. Is that divination? Divination? I think it is, isn't it? Okay. Let's see what the vagabond's talents are, so that Sarah knows what she can do. The hobo tricks. Gain +2 to stealth when trying to hide yourself or an object from a wealthy human. Suspicious. Ignore mental conditions when making a vigilance test. And well-travelled. Once per mystery, you can make a manipulation test to create an NPC who is situated in the area and who you have met before. Oh, I guess it's interesting. The Games Master decides how she has changed since you last met and what she thinks of you now. If the test fails, she is either hostile or in great need of your help. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that kind of works out. Okay, we will learn more about that. Ignore the odd-looking plant standing in the corner. Yes. Okay, and so it goes over to general talents. So all characters can have a combination of these. Oh, you have a pet that you can use once per session to gain a +1 to a test of your choice in a situation where your pet is clearly of use. No, so you can't get your dog to suddenly do something amazing. What? They're down the well? Shall I follow you? Okay. So there we go. So that is all of the general and specific talents. So here we go. Inevitably in a game like this there's going to be conflict, isn't there? So conflict and injuries. Fighting the Vaesen. And again, this is an interesting sort of element because of the sort of time period. And of course, you know, it is still weapons, but I suppose we kind of romanticize it a little bit. We can have swords, which might be, well, different types of swords will be with different classes, let's call that, classes of character. But of course we have firearms, we have rifles and pistols. So we can have quite a variety of weapons to use. And you know, who doesn't like a good sword, hey? So we can do, again, use our various actions. Close combat and ranged weapons. Ammunition. Oh, and of course we could just do some good old-fashioned wrestling and punching. Ambush and sneak attacks. And then injuries. Here we go. So, as previously mentioned, taking damage causes you to suffer conditions. The type of damage, mental or physical, determines the type of condition that afflicts you. In combat, the weapon's damage value indicates how many conditions you get. So when you have checked off all physical or mental conditions and suffer another one of the same type, you become broken. Do you remember we talked about this in Tales from the Loop, yes? And in Tales from the Loop, if you became broken, it required your friends to basically reassure you, to give you the confidence to keep going, because of course, as playing a child, none of the children are harmed in the game. They may suffer scares and frights. They may lose their confidence during the course of it and become frozen, but nobody dies. Well, that's not the case in Vaesen. As we take a look at the physical critical injuries. Oh, look at this. Oh my goodness. Anything from a foot injury all the way through to, a ruptured bowel. Oh my goodness. A deep arm gash. A burst artery, a caved-in forehead. Oh, yes. So, and there's more. Oh, okay. So we have all these physical injuries, which, yeah, they really mess you up. Fae folk are no joke. They are not. They take no prisoners, yeah? My goodness. Put into a coma, or a spinal injury, or a torn body. My goodness. Okay, so that really does mess you up. But that's physical. And on the other side, because it's not just claws and teeth, but the fear, the mental injuries that you can suffer from. So anything from just being confused, not quite sure, and overwhelmed or pushed too far, all the way to shaken and stressed, to traumatized, to crushed or ashamed, and then horrifying realization, possessed, supernatural experience, and a split consciousness. Oh, so yes, there's obviously a lot of fun to be had as far as all of the injuries that can befall your character. It's probably not fun at the time if you are deeply associated with it, but whitened hair. Wow, you basically see something that instantly turns your hair white. Well, I mean, you know, you could probably rock that, couldn't you? It'd be all right. Okay. So, and yeah, so it does talk a lot about fear, being terrified, freezing or fainting, or fleeing. And we have explosions and fire. Look. Oh. Oh. I hope that, see, I love all the little illustrations. It's just a little shame that they don't say what creature they are. You know, you need what did he call it? The guide that has all the creatures in. So fire and poison and falling damage, and then how to heal your injuries. And oh my goodness. Activities. It is possible to heal your own conditions by engaging in an activity that provides relaxation and rest. Summarize what happens or play a short scene. The activity must involve at least one other person, NPC or player characters, or your memento. So, examples of activities. So, if you have suffered from conditions, how to get over your condition is by drinking some alcohol, or by engaging in an intellectual discussion, or maybe some self-flagellation. Because, you know, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of self-flagellation to get rid of a condition, is there? Hello! Oh, I'm looking across. Is that Ecult? I want to say Ecultus, but there's no T. Eculus? Oh my goodness, I am messing that up. But welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for coming over. Eculus. Oh yeah, we'll go with that. Eculus. Yeah, I know it's ruined. I know. My goodness, I'm doing Scandinavian names here. I am ruining every name this evening. No name will not be ruined. Eculus. Okay, we'll go with that. Eculus. You see, why don't people put phonetic pronunciation in their names? That's what we need. Well, welcome to the channel. Thank you for coming in and having your name completely ruined. Okay, so... oh my goodness, playing cards. Well, we already know that I would not be doing the playing cards element of this. So, we move on to the equipment. But of course, your equipment will be determined by your living standards. If you're destitute, you're hardly going to have the best of equipment, are you? Is that the Nicaea? Ah, okay. No, that's cool. We will find them. Okay, and so we've got this great selection of equipment here. Crowbars and lockpicks, opera glasses. Who doesn't want some opera glasses? A compass, magnifying glasses, writing utensils, chemical equipment, a pet dog, a guard dog, a strong horse or a weak horse, some makeup, sometimes required for manipulation. Okay. And a rope. So, plenty of equipment to choose from. Services and establishments. Oh, going too far. Hang on. There we go. What's a feldsher? A quack? What's a quack or a feldsher? Come on. Because we've got a doctor. We have a personal doctor or a surgeon. But what's a feldsher? Is it a cheap doctor? Is it a doctor of dubious credentials? Oh, a homing pigeon. Or an errand boy. Which goes faster in a straight line? A simple meal or a fancy dinner? So, interesting. And then it goes through melee weapons and ranged weapons. Oh my goodness. So anything from a spear to a cannon. I'm not quite sure, you know, trundling a cannon along with you, but maybe that's what happens. Maybe you need a cannon to be up against one of these creatures. Maybe we're against a troll, see? All right. So if you remember when I was explaining the game world right at the start, we have our society and their headquarters. And of course the society's name I could not pronounce. But they are in the Swedish city of Uppsala? Uppsala? I wonder, is that the old name for... Oh gosh. I see, I'm going to do it wrong. Is it Stockholm? No, is it Stockholm for Sweden? Somebody tell me the capital of Sweden. Should know, shouldn't I? Should know. So that might be the old name. I think it probably is, isn't it? So it goes into telling us a little bit about the history of the society. So we get an understanding of where they come from. And we get some of the history on the fact of how there was a massacre and the society dwindles and then it is reborn. And this is where we as players come on in. And we find out who is sort of in charge of the society. Was it Stockholm? That's good. Excellent. Thank you. Here we go. It's Castle Gillen Kreutz. Gosh, I can't do it. Castle Gillen Kreutz. Yeah, not good. It's the castle. It is the castle. Let's just call it that. I thought I was doing so well last week. I've failed this week. Okay. So we get a bit of an understanding there. We go into some campaign rules here regarding our headquarters. And we get an idea of the equipment that are in the headquarters and what upgrades. Oh, there we go. We can have a carp pond. Would you, Sarah, would you like a carp pond in the headquarters? A carp pond with a little stream and waterfalls under white wooden bridges. We need to have a botanical garden first, though. So that's cool. We can upgrade our headquarters. A seance parlor. This is actually quite cool. So we will do our mysteries, our missions, and then come back to our headquarters and we can upgrade. Feels a little bit like a video game, doesn't it? That's quite cool. And of course that then gives us better access to a pigeon loft. So we can have pigeons, which of course can be useful in our adventures when we need to call in help maybe. I like that. Treasure chamber. Indeed, we need a seance room for contacting the dead. Of course we do. And a gymnasium. And an occult archive. But you need to have an occult temple or mystic. A vault enclosed by thick leaded walls and protective inscriptions. The alcoves in the passageway behind the library have been bricked up, and behind a porous stone you see impenetrable lead doors. Each level can store up to 3 power items. Wow. Okay, so this is where we stash our like Ark of the Covenant. This is actually quite cool. I like that. Okay. So we focused in a little bit there on our headquarters, but now let's actually take a look at the Mythic North and Uppsala. The city of Uppsala, which will be the starting point of all your mysteries, is described with several examples of places you can visit, either to search for clues or drive away the Vaesen occupying them. So let's check this out. The art is fantastic. It is by... Let me just go and get the person's name. It is Johan Egerkrans, who is on Instagram. So if you want to see more of his wonderful art, go and check it out. I think it is Johan Egerkrans illustrator. You will certainly find, and you will see amazing art. It really is beautiful stuff. It is certainly something that appealed to me when I first started looking through the book. So here we go. So this is again, chapter 7. We're looking at the Mythic North, which takes place in, of course, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. All right. So here we go. It is a time and a place that mixes events, cultural expressions, and conflicts from the entire 19th century in a way that will be unique for each gaming group. Together, the players, and particularly the games master, get to decide what their version of Scandinavia will be like. Use what you know, or think you know, about the 19th century, or whatever fantasies you might have about the era, to create a setting that highlights your player characters and stories. If Finland, being occupied by the Russian Tsar, is what takes to more your character's journey to the outskirts of is that tempera more exciting, and to build up to the encounter with a Vaesen, then occupied it will be. If you want your journalist to write her society critical text on a typewriter, then typewriters will have been invented and made available. So I like that. Is, you got a general idea. You can bring things in. It doesn't matter if it's not historically accurate. It's what works for you in the setting that you're trying to sort of create. But it does go through the conflicts in Scandinavia, so there's lots to read about there. We've got a nice map that shows us all of the area. And so actually, yeah, I can see Stockholm. Okay. So Uppsala is just slightly north of Stockholm. So it is a city in its own right. And in fact, here we go. So it starts telling us a little bit about life in the city, but then important cities in Northern Europe. Stockholm, Christiania is the capital of Norway, so it wasn't Oslo at the time. Copenhagen and Helsinki. So we don't necessarily have to stay in Uppsala. We can move around all of Scandinavia, which gives you plenty of scope and plenty of adventuring. And maybe would you go by horse? Or horse and carriage? Maybe would it be could you have a steamship in the 1800s? I think you could. And potentially, could you have a train? With trains starting at the end of the 1800s? Maybe your adventure involves a sort of prototype train, an early train. So here we go. But well, it talks then about what life in the country would be like, and then of course technology. I love all the detail. Oh, here we go. See, it's answering the questions as they get raised. Travel in Scandinavia. So a coach, giving you an idea of speeds on how long it would take. 8 to 10 kilometers. A train is 30. Steamboat 25. We've got a horse, walking and marching. Okay. So yes, so everything I've just said, we can do. That's great. Titles and names. Titles are important when addressing other people. Mrs. used for unmarried women and Mrs. for married ones. Mr. can be used for men. Soldiers and officers are addressed with their rank. So that's it. Again, that's interesting. We can various titles. So here we go. We have a map of Uppsala. Gives us an idea of what this city is like. We have the castle, the hospital, the university, cathedral, a station, the asylum, the botanical garden. What's that? Is that? I'm trying to see what that is. Number 9. What's number 9? Altmus Puss? What's that? I want to find out what that is. Junta. Oh, this is interesting. There's always something to discover. The junta, the student movement known as the junta, was established at the end of the 18th century as a political protest movement against restrictions on the freedom of the press and other civil liberties. Several of its members were musicians at the Royal Academic Orchestra. In the year 1800, they put on a concert for the king. Some refused to play, while others performed the piece so poorly it caused a scandal. The musicians were severely punished, and the junta was dissolved. Or so the official story goes. The truth is that the junta went underground and was joined by more members. It is now a secret revolutionary organization with ties to enemy nations. Okay. Wow. If it's not enough to have mythical folklore creatures to deal with, and we have this underground movement. So it says here, exactly what the junta is up to the games master to decide. They could be Republicans that have ties to groups fighting for the Norwegian independence, be paid by Danish spies, or represent political ideologies such as liberalism, socialism, or nationalism. One of the player characters could be a member, or maybe the junta is an enemy of the society. Okay, so secret organizations. Interesting. Right, so here we go. This is, I guess this is a large section. This is an area which I have spent some time having a look at because I just found all of this wonderful. This is the Vaesen. This is all of the creatures from myth and folklore that you can involve in your games. And it's really interesting, of course, with some of us being miniature painters, to see some of this art and to realise that we have seen some of these characters in miniature form previously. We've seen many times. You know, this elf-looking lady on a huge stag. Yep, I've seen this character many times. So now I'm going to find out exactly who it is. And... oh, okay. This is interesting. God and the Devil. The game does not define whether or not God and the devil really exist. Some Vaesen think they have been sent from hell and may well appear as demons, convinced that the power of Satan is working through them. Others believe themselves to be servants of God. Interesting. So types of Vaesen. Although all Vaesen are unique, an attempt to categorize them might look something like this. So we have nature spirits, familiars, shapeshifters, spirits of the dead, and monsters. Are you liking the art, Mystical? It is beautiful, isn't it? Okay. So this is an area now, and it does point out right at the top here, for games masters only. This chapter and those that follow are only intended for the games master. If you are a player, you should read no further. All right. So hey, shall we just we'll just put the whole spoiler alert on here now. So if you did intend to play, you know, maybe don't focus too heavily on this section now. Yeah. All right, but we're going to take a look because we want to learn all about it. So it's going through where are the Vaesen. We won't focus too much on it. We're looking at enchantments and curses and trollcraft. Trollcraft is a form of magic usually practiced by trolls and fairies that involves bending time and space or altering reality in various ways. Okay. It doesn't want to work here. So Mystical, I think I want to get this and learn it really well and have it be one, if not the first things you DM. Oh yes. Well, that's great when you find a game that really sort of speaks to you. Yeah. No, I this is one that I really have enjoyed going through. I've tried read a fair amount of it. I really like the setting, and I think, of course, it is presented incredibly well. So let's take a look here. Player characters. Using magic. In exceptional circumstances, the player characters can obtain the magic skill. So a whole variety of different enchantments or curses. Oh, too far. Too far. Go back. There you go. Or trollcraft. So interesting spells that might be cast. And then we have some rules for the Vaesen. Again, this is mostly the games master, so we won't focus too much on it. More charts, right? But here's the bit that we'll kind of look at as a tease, because I want to see that the creatures are fantastic. And of course, all of this is taken from Scandinavian mythology and folklore, so you could find a name and then go and find the wiki page and you could read up all about it, yeah? Really get your imagination flowing. So the ash tree wife. Some ash trees are inhabited by an ash tree wife, a terrifying female Vaesen that is bound to the tree, demanding offerings from the people at certain times of the year. She can haunt those who damage the tree, spread diseases, and twist people's minds. The ash tree wife resembles a human woman, combined with certain features of the tree: long green hair, bark-like skin, and horn-like branches. She controls the tree and all the greenery in its surrounding area. So, is this where... I'm going to try and convert this a little bit. Is this where we get the idea of... Is it dryads? Is this where we would get that from? As in for modern sort of gaming? I know of the Dryad sort of faction that seems to appear in some popular games. I see. What I like about this is seeing what was the original ideas, and then seeing how they may have been converted. I mean, is this also an element? We'll jump to Tolkien for a second here, where the Ents come from this folklore. Not maybe not necessarily a terrifying female, but yes. The trees are alive. The Brook Horse. Brook Horse is a magnificent stallion, white, dappled grey, black or shimmering blue in the moonlight. It is a predator with razor-sharp teeth that lurks in brooks and lakes. Oh. It can breathe underwater. Okay, that's terrifying. A church grim is a creature that keeps watch over a church. It is created by killing an animal and burying it inside the church wall. Most church grims take the form of a dog, rooster, cat, or horse. The creature attacks anyone trying to harm the church or its pastor. Interesting. A fairy. Not the Tinkerbell kind of fairy. These are fairies. I've seen it in other sort of shows where we depict fairies with razor-sharp teeth, like little flying piranhas. Fairies live and work in communities. They normally appear as luminous, palm-sized women, although they can take any form they like, often wisps of mist, insect or frogs. Male fairies are called elves and look like tiny old men. Fairies love playing pranks. They are self-centered and easily offended, devoid of human morals. People who anger them are either bitten or infected with disease. Nasty fairies. Ghosts are the spirits of dead people who have not found peace in death because of some need or desire that must first be met. A giant. Giants are ancient creatures who have been in Scandinavia since long before the humans. They are vaguely human-like, but huge, often equipped with horns, fangs, tusks, or strange growths on their bodies. Giants are often violent and impetuous. They abhor Christianity and are known for hurling boulders at churches in the hope of crushing them. And interestingly enough then, there's elements that in this section here on Giant that if you watch the movie Troll on Netflix, you'll see some of these elements actually there in the movie. So the movie did do its research, which is great. A lindworm. Lindworm is an ancient monster with a reptilian body and razor-sharp claws, capable of spitting caustic acid. Ah, but it likes its treasure. Good evening, Roger. Welcome. You watched Troll? You thought it was a good show? Yes. No, we're looking through the Vaesen from the role-playing game of Nordic Horror. This is a mare. Mares are women who unknowingly shapeshift into nightmarish Vaesen. The victims are possessed by deceased, unmarried women who seek revenge on the living or long to see a beloved in the afterlife. Oh. Right. Here we go. Mermaids. The mermaids rule over the sea and the waves and all the creatures of the deep. She is said to have a fish tail instead of legs, a hollow fish-scaled back, and gills. Some insist there are many mermaids and even mermen. Okay, here we go. A miling is a spirit of a child murdered by its mother. Oh my goodness. Often because it was born out of wedlock or because there was no societal safety net for those too poor to care for their children. In the 19th century, infanticide is punishable by death, and the miling often wants to see its mother punished. Right, ooh, see, this is interesting. Because if you guys have watched it or are aware of, is it The Witcher? And again, The Witcher is a great resource of lots of myth and folklore creatures. And am I right in saying it is it Polish? Is it Polish mythology? Why do I want to say Polish? Am I right? Yes, there you go. So again, another great resource. Yeah, so I actually think there is a story. There's one of the Witcher stories that kind of has an element of this miling. Having played the game and seen the TV show. Oh, this is an interesting one. The Neck is a musician living in rivers, brooks, and lakes. He takes the shape of a man, young or old, often with some peculiar characteristics. Cloven hooves, a third eye in the middle of his forehead, or frog's eyes. The Neck plays a fiddle, the flute, and the harp. His melodies are beautiful, melancholic, and captivating. Those who listen to his tunes cannot stop dancing. The Neck lures people into the water and drowns them. Some say he is lonely and that he draws people into his underwater realm to enjoy their company, forgetting that humans cannot live without air. So it's a little bit tragic. Ooh. Night Raven are bitter and damaged spirits of suicides and criminals buried in unholy ground, sometimes banished by a church grim who purged the unhallowed dead from a northern part of the graveyard. Well, this is now getting a little bit more terrifying, isn't it? I hope I'm going to say this correct. So is it a niece? Niece? Some farms have a farmstead niece. The niece wants what is best for the farm and usually ignores the people living there. He helps with the farm work and often has a favourite horse whose mane he braids in a way that is very difficult to undo. So it's a little bit like gnomes, aren't they? Looks like a gnome. Not a dwarf, more a gnome. And a revenant is an undead spirit of an evil human, full of hatred for mankind and an urge to frighten, harm, and kill. Usually it wants to torment its family or other people it used to loathe back when it was still human. Right, this one's just full out evil, so no holding back on this one, just kill it. A Nisa. Okay, Nisa. I'll remember that one. We have then a sea serpent. So we live in caves and crevasses around the coasts and fjords beneath windswept islands or in the depths of mountain lakes. The Serptus is a magical being often appearing in the form of a shiny black bug or a small white snake or worm. It is said to be in league with the devil, and humans can use its power to gain wealth, love, and success. Ooh. The most common way of obtaining a Serptus is to go fishing in a brook with a human leg as bait, or keeping a chicken egg in one's armpit until it hatches. What the? A Serptus usually lives in a snuff box and needs to be fed every day with human spit. If the owner forgets to feed it, its vengeance will be terrible. Sooner or later the creature will take control of its owner unless it is sold or given away, but it can only be passed on twice. The third person to accept the creature will never be rid of it, and the Serptus will assume control of its owner. My goodness me! Oh my god, this is so messed up. And what's great is it has rules for the third owner. That's great. So maybe you as the player could be the third owner because you don't know what's happened before you. Symbiotic creatures for the win. And then, of course, we have trolls. Good old trolls. Trolls live in communities in mountains and hills where they brew beer, keep livestock, and get married. Yeah. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a troll. So, Vatir? Vatir? So these are the interesting, I think this was the one that I was saying I looked at before and thought was quite cool. So no Vaesen live closer to the humans than the Vatir, who are also the easiest to get along with. They live in colonies underneath stables and fireplaces or in underground passages. The household ought to warn them before pouring hot water on the ground or moving any buildings. Vatir are as small as rats, dressed in black or grey clothes, with an appearance that resembles small animals such as toads, mice, or hedgehogs. So it's a little bit, you know, it's like Wind in the Willows. You are familiar with that? A werewolf. It's a shapeshifter, human that can transform into a wolf or a bear. Toad's Wild Ride, yes. Boop boop. Will-o'-the-wisps. And then a woodwife. The woodwife is part of the forest, and she is its guardian. She appears as a human woman, but can also take the form of a tree, a rock, or an animal. There is always something strange about her. She might have cloven hooves, a tail, skin with a greenish glow, or back covered with bark like a hollow tree trunk. So there you go. So those are the Vaesen that the game describes in detail. I will say to you, there is an expansion which is the British Isles and Ireland, and that adds extra player character archetypes that we looked at earlier, and then also Vaesen that are appropriate to the British Isles and Ireland. So I think the Irish one is a very obvious. It has the leprechaun in there. It also has a creature suitable for the Loch Ness monster, for example, for up in sort of Scotland. So if you wanted to get more creatures into your game, then that's how you can do it. And it's another really great read if you really are enjoying all of these creatures. Can you add? Well, this is the thing. It is set within Scandinavia. It is using Scandinavian creatures, but as I've just sort of explained, you could hop over to London because it does cover London and Edinburgh, and I think it also does Dublin. So you can go to the British Isles, you can go to Ireland. Do you know, is there anything stopping you from exploring other parts of the world? Why not? Yeah, I think you would have to visit them. I don't think that creatures would come over to Scandinavia on a holiday. So I think your players would have to go to that region. So, for example, we were talking about Polish folklore, wasn't we? Maybe the society goes over to Poland. So no reason why not. Again, that's the great thing about role-playing games. You can make it work for what you want to do. This is just giving you the rules and the mechanics to be able to experience those kind of games. Unless it was captured and gets brought over. There you go, Roger. See? Yes. Why not, eh? Oh, you mean other Norse creatures that aren't named in the book? I guess so, yes. As the games master, you would just have to create the rules in line with the rest of the game for that particular creature. No reason why not. No reason why not. Oh, too far. So it looks at various animals, because there are just obviously ordinary animals in the world. And here you go. You see, no sooner do you ask a question and we have the results. The Vaesen of the world. This book is about Nordic Vaesen and Norse mythology, but the rules can also be used to solve mysteries in places outside the Nordic region. This section offers tips on how you as the games master can use the rules to create Vaesen from other countries and cultures. All it takes is a bit of imagination, some research on the place's local mythology, and a willingness to tweak the rules to suit the particular Vaesen you plan on using. There you go. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with, and so, oh, here we go. It's actually even talking about creating the origins of, so what, the Black Shuck is a black hellhound roaming churchyards found in East England around Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex. I can't even say that word. Right, so yes, it looks at, oh my goodness, so here we go. You're talking about a shape-shifting spirit found in the Philippines. Okay, so yes, your societal adventurers could travel anywhere around the world. So here you go, there's a little box here, the British Isles. You got a variety of different ones there. Where's oh, there you go, Eastern Europe, Baba Yaga. We've talked about Baba Yaga, haven't we? So absolutely, you can go and create your own Vaesen. And I dare say there might be, you know, as I say, they've already done the British Isles. You know, if the game is increasingly popular, there's no reason why they might not do other creatures from around the world. Okay, we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly now. So the mystery, of course, is the actual adventure that you are on, and this is very much now all the Games Master area. So this is actually how you create your mystery, giving you an idea of the locations and the misdeeds, what has gone on, and how you build your atmosphere, the setting of clues for the players to find and then follow. And then it's a countdown to catastrophe. And ultimately, what this will end up doing is creating your actual adventure. So it goes into a fair amount of detail. You know, suggestions on how to set the mood for the actual game. And again, we looked at this, didn't we, a little bit in Tales for the Loop, where you can go from place to place to place to get the confrontation, or your players can jump from different places to find the clues together to then go into the confrontation. I found that quite interesting when we looked at it. And so, again, more details on all of how to put the mystery together. Various tables to be able to sort of randomize elements to your mystery if you need a little bit of guidance. So it's great that it has all of this all available. You know, tables on character names. If you're not quite sure and you want to have an idea, roll some dice and it will give you a name for you. And then, of course, the idea that you can have multiple mysteries linking together into a campaign. There are, I believe, several campaigns currently available from Free League Publishing, which you can get. Dark secrets in play. And then ultimately, Chapter 10, The Dance of Dreams. We will not go any further because this, of course, is a mystery that the player, or the Games Master who has the book here, could use with their player. But interesting that there is a little note. It's not on the digital version you've got there, but there is a note here in the book, content warning, that this particular mystery involves violence, death, self-harm, suicide, child harm, and mind control. So this particular mystery is not for the faint-hearted, yes? At the end of the day, this is a horror-based role-playing game. Granted, of course, it is completely up to the Games Master to create a story, a mystery that is suitable for all of the players involved, and you can alter that slider as far as the amount of peril and the type of content within. So you could make it suitable for potentially younger audiences or ones who don't want such dark content. You can have a few little jump scares in there, but you can, you know, tailor it to your audience, basically. Again, that's the great thing about role-playing games, isn't it? And ultimately, at the back of the book, you do have your character sheet, and we will get a version of that in for a few weeks' time, and we will come and revisit Vaesen, and we will create our very own characters, and just get a little bit of an idea of, you know, who we might want to play in a game. So I hope you've enjoyed that look through. I hope it's inspired and got your imagination buzzing a little bit. You love it, Mystical. Oh, that's great. Well, that's really good. Is that gonna work? Yay! There we go. I really like it. I like the setting. I like the ideas of what you're able to do with it. I like this fact that we can look at other areas of Europe. And, you know, obviously, I like that I can go to the British Isles. So I like that we can go and take a look at some British folklore as well, which is quite cool. Let's see if this works. Is it going to work? Roger, looking forward to when we make a character. Yes. Yes, no, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Well, this is what we were talking about before, Roger. What about the US? I don't believe there's anything that they've made for the US currently, but as we saw, there are rules for us to be able to create creatures and monsters from different countries. Is anybody familiar with Neil Gaiman's American Gods? Are you familiar with the? There was obviously the book, and then of course the TV show. But there's an element in that where they talk about the fact of that Odin is over in the US because the Nordic people sailed across and brought their gods with them. So I like that concept, because then it means that maybe some of the mythological creatures from the old world will have travelled to the new world, you know, during that time. So maybe you would find Vaesen over in the US. Maybe Vaesen is just the name for all mythological creatures, no matter where. And so, of course, with the US, as we discussed before, I'm trying to think of the name, because we played the game, didn't we? We had the universal monsters, and then we had the American monsters, didn't we? I can't think of the name now. Horrified. There you go. Horrified American monsters. So we had, what was it, the Jersey Devil, and we had Mothman, and we had can you guys remember some of the monsters that we had to face? There was a whole variety, wasn't there? And so there's no reason why you couldn't create any of the... Oh, yes, oh, here we go. Chupacabra? Coco Cabana. Yes, so there you go. You could create all of those Vaesen, US Vaesen, and then you could be over there in the US. Chupacabra. Yeah, well, you know me. I always mess the names up. All right, well, there you go, folks. That was Vaesen Nordic Horror Roleplaying. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. We will be revisiting Scandinavia on Thursday with our live gameplay. So if you want to join us, then we'll be going back to the 10th century. This was the 19th century, the 1800s. We're going back to the 10th century on Thursday. So if you want to join us then for a live game, then please do. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. I think that pretty much wraps things up. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. Hope you enjoyed looking through the game, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. But until then, bye for now.